Fair warning, this show contains strong language and adult themes from time to time. Sorry, Jerry can't help it.
Sick Boy Wolfgang Productions presents The Offering with Jerry Horror. A deep dive into the history of film and its filmmakers. Mostly horror, always genre.
Attention all horror-loving gals and ghouls, are you thirsty for a frightfully good pint? Then rise from the grave and make your way to the Necromantic Brew Co. This horror movie-themed brewery is serving up scares and beers like no other, hosting killer events, unique horror happenings, and even special celebrity guests. And here's the twist. They're the only dedicated gluten-free brewery with a tap room in all of New York. We've summoned the lineup and loaded the crypt because the necromantic fridge is overflowing with horror-inspired brews. Find them at 253 Main Street in Farmingdale, haunting Long Island with hops and horror, easy to get to right off the Long Island Railroad. So come raise a glass with the living, the dead, and everyone in between. Necromantic Brew Co. Drink differently. Welcome to The Offering with me, your host, Jerry Horror. Each week we take a deep dive into the history of film and filmmakers. Mostly horror, always genre. Please take a moment to subscribe to our show wherever you find your favorite podcast to stay up to date on future episodes. Coming up, Sylvester Stallone is on record calling this movie a great action film and ahead of its time. The title was taken from the Police's song of the same name, and they had Sting remake the song just for the movie. The screenwriter of this film was inspired to add an odd futuristic detail when his buddy told him that he had a bag of seashells on his toilet as a decoration. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss this.
Creepy classics, modern fights. Jerry guides us through the nights. Horror's history in the lights. Exploring endless chills and heights. George Romero, lost footage and hidden gems. Director's visions, dark diadems behind the scenes. We're taken there. Insightful whispered secrets we share. Sam Raimi. The Offering with Jerry Horror. Stories old and new. Jason Kruger, Bruce Campbell. Genre twists that shake your core. Every episode, we craving more. Mostly horror, always genre.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends beyond the binary, it's me, your host, Jerry Horror, and this is The Offering. Folks, this is the second to last episode of the season. Are you pumped? Are you excited? We made it this far. Come on, hey, if this is your first time listening, welcome to The Offering. This is not a podcast. This is, in fact, a cult. I hope you all are doing well out there. We are gearing up right now for Thanksgiving. I'm so excited. Thanksgiving is such a non-committal holiday. You don't have to shop for it. There's no bullshit. Well, you do got to do some food shopping. Did I tell you? My rotten ass brother decided, hey, you know what? I want to do a nice little Thanksgiving with just me and you, and I'll come out to you. Now, luckily, I bought a turkey. They had turkeys on sale. Bought a turkey. I figured, you know what? These turkeys are cheap. Now he's coming to my house. Can I tell you? I pressed the cheat code. I pulled the cheat code. I decided to get all the sides from Whole Foods. I got to go pick it up on Thanksgiving Day, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? Look, it is what it is, man. It's easier for me. But enough about my Thanksgiving plans, which are underwhelming to say the least. Sorry, Uncle Jerry's been hitting the old bottle, hitting that Mad Dog 2020. I hope everybody's excited about Stranger Things. They're going to do this weird drop where it's like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then New Year's Eve. If you're into Stranger Things, they've got a whole section at Target. It's like the Upside Down at Target. I was in there the other night and I was like, wow. I'm like, this feels like corporate synergy. It was quite amazing to say the least. I think I bought some Upside Down soap, so they got me. I like my body to smell like the Demogorgons. I'm excited for this new Stranger Things. I'm glad to see we're finally coming full circle. I'm not going to make any predictions, but I will say, please, Duffer Bros, make sure you stick the landing, because holy shit, dude. I love Stranger Things. I talked about it the other day on Threads. I was saying, you can follow me at Jerry Horror on Threads. I was saying that basically the pilot for Stranger Things is like one of the best pilots I've ever seen, because everybody feels comfortable. The chemistry's there. It's like everything is completely baked in. Sometimes when you watch a pilot for an episode, you're like, oh man, this really feels kind of like wonky and off, and they don't really hit their stride. Stranger Things, 10 out of 10. Perfect. No notes. They hit their stride. Rewatch that pilot. If you're getting ready to binge watch all this bullshit, each episode is like a friggin' movie. You know, you watch the final season of Stranger Things, and it's a long, long series. Hopefully they got some stuff to say. They got Linda Hamilton. She's got a real, can I see the manager haircut? So there's that. Whatever. It's fine. I love Linda Hamilton. So, look, folks, this is the second to last episode of the season. Please subscribe, like, and whatever the hell else people do. If you're not following the show, make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're following. Do something. We love doing this for you, so show some love back. We did the Steve Barton episode, and it went over fantastic. Huge response to that. Shout out to Steve Barton. Sick plug, because now he is the plug. I can call Steve Barton. I'm like, Steve, I need some trouble. I'm in jail. Bail me out. Speaking of jail, holy shit, dude. So I picked producer Pete up from the train station. We are in a time crunch to get Steve Barton and talk to him and do the interview. And wouldn't you know it, oh, it's just a tradition of everything we do. We get pulled over by the police. Not one, but 2 squad cars pull us over. And all I'm thinking to myself is, holy shit, we need to get this episode done. We could be arrested. They could do all kinds of butt stuff. Who knows what could happen? In these heady days when armed marauders just bust out of minivans and grab people, who knows what the local police are going to do to old Uncle Jerry and producer Pete. Holy shit. Oh, it's kind of kinky, actually. So with that being said, they hop out, and luckily I was able to name drop some stuff, and, it all went according to plan. I got some stuff I got to bring to the Allstate guy. He's taking care of it. It's going to be fine. But it was funny because the guys, of course, he's like, well, what are you guys doing? Well, we're going to make a fucking podcast. And he's like, well, what's your podcast called? I'm like, it's The Offering with me, your host, Jerry Horror. And I just did verbatim the thing. And I'm like, Pete, are you recording? I'm like, we could just do it now. We'll talk to these young officers. What's crazy too is I'm at the age where the cops are old enough to be like my kids. You get what I'm saying? Like, the cops are so fucking young. They're probably like, 22, 23. They're out of the academy. Barely Legal in Blue. That's our new series coming soon. We have had a fantastic season. I couldn't be more grateful. This show continues to grow every season. It is like the little engine that could. With your support and all the people that tell us, how much they love the show. Listen, I'm gobsmacked. It freaks me out, man. This thing is really taking off, and it gets just a little bit bigger. Speaking of which, I got to tell you, we got probably one of the best reviews that I think we've ever gotten. Every review I'm very thankful for, I'm very grateful for, but goddamn is this review hot. So hot. All right, are you ready, folks? This is a 5-star review from our pod page entitled Blood, Guts, and Barton. The new tenacity and wisdom of Steve Barton episode might be one of the strongest things Jerry Horror has put out. I've listened to The Offering for a while, but this one hit different. Hearing Steve Barton, Dread Central's Uncle Creepy himself, open up about his career, the loss, the mentorships, and all the behind-the-scenes scars of horror journalism felt honest in a way that most podcasts never pull off. The Terrifier discussion was intense, too. Jerry gave Steve the space to lay out everything clearly and honestly. Steve didn't hold back about standing firmly with Catherine Corcoran as she takes legal action against the Terrifier team. It was the kind of conversation you almost never get to hear from someone who helped push that franchise into the spotlight. Compared to the other shows I listen to, Postmortem, Colors of the Dark, and a few others, Jerry's style feels more personal and grounded. It's like listening to a real conversation instead of something that's overly produced or rehearsed. If you care about horror history, indie filmmaking, or the people behind the scenes, this episode is absolutely worth your time. Team Barton and Team Corcoran all the way. The author of this wonderful review was Matt Gorey from Dayton, Ohio. This was given on our website, which, hey, always visit that pod page, baby. Holy shit, dude. Thank you. And you name dropped, some stuff here that's very important. Postmortem, Colors of the Dark, and a few others. We're going head to head with Bloody Disgusting's podcasts, with Fangoria, and even Dread Central. Look, it's a crowded marketplace, and I know I don't always do horror films. Today's episode isn't even a horror film, or is it? Dude, this is insane. Like, this is some Rocky Balboa shit. Stay tuned for the episode for more on that. This really is some crazy shit, though, because we are the underdog, and we are going head to head with all of these big companies who have, I'm not going to say unlimited resources, but they have a much broader reach. They're able to really capitalize on their brand. They're connected to a big parent company. We aren't. This is an indie little podcast. We are the little underground sensation that just keeps on going. Kind of like Jason Voorhees. Oh, we shot him. He's down. No, he's not down. The offering is back and it's coming to kill you. So when you're supporting this show, you're supporting me, producer Pete, David, our artist, and George, the guy who does all of our video. We appreciate that because, listen, this is like Clash of the Titans shit. We are definitely the David in this Goliath situation. So every time that you help this show, we get a greater foothold against our competition. And maybe I shouldn't envision this competition. In some ways, I'm very sports-minded, combat sports. And the reality of it is that I'm always looking to get a couple of more points in each round. And this season has been no exception. We are fighting way above our weight, and we are kicking ass, and we couldn't do that without you. So with this being the second to last episode of the season, thank you. Thank you for listening to this show. Thank you for partaking in what we do. Thank you for these great reviews. You guys are really showing up and supporting us, and we appreciate that. Let's get down to brass tacks, kids. It's an all-new episode of The Offering. It's the second to last of the season. Did I say that? Technically, it's the penultimate, as some of the more educated folks out there will know with bigger vocabularies. But for you folks in the cheap seats with your popcorn and your Charleston chews, it's the second to last episode, as I have aforementioned. Dig this. Are you ready? Because we're getting into it. And let me tell you something. This episode is going to knock your socks off. Hell, you're not going to believe the shit that we get into with this one. I have to say, this is one of my favorite science fiction action films of the 90s. There's very few that I hold in such high regard that hold up. This movie is full of laughter, product placement, and self-fulfilling prophecy for the United States, which is really scary. All right, so get your Crunchwrap Supremes out. Make sure you've got your 3 Seashells and have a happy joy day while listening to this hot new second to last episode of the season of The Offering. Dig it, baby! So, you found yourself in 1993 at any local multiplex in the United States. You're looking for action films. You're a big, dorky action hound like me, little fat kid in his shorts, ready to get wild with the Dr. Pepper and the popcorn. And what do you find in cinemas near you in 1993? Well, let me tell you. Hard Target, John Woo's masterpiece with Jean-Claude Van Damme. In the Line of Fire, a return to form for Clint Eastwood. Cliffhanger. Hey, me, it's Sylvester Stallone. Now I'm doing this. Listen, I watched the 4K of Cliffhanger. Holy shit, dude. Talk about styrofoam sets. Sometimes you watch these movies in 4K and woof, you don't want to see it. Last Action Hero. Come on. Previous episode. Sick plug. The Fugitive. Nowhere to Run. That was the weird Jean-Claude Van Damme movie with Rosanna Arquette. Oh, she gets naked in that one. If you haven't seen Nowhere to Run, holy shit. You want to see Rosanna Arquette have a love scene with the old Van Damme. Ho. That's about all that movie's got to offer because, like, he decided I'm not going to throw any kicks in this movie. I'm just going to make kind of like a Shane type of movie. It's not bad, but it's not good. Iron Monkey, which is a Triumph. Judgment Night, Striking Distance, Tai Chi Master. with Jet Li and Michelle Yeoh. By the way, the 4K version of Tai Chi Master is streaming now on Amazon Prime. Oh my God, it looks amazing. Boiling Point. Let me talk about Boiling Point, which is another Wesley Snipes vehicle. Boiling Point was a movie that had no Wesley Snipes written into it. It was a Dennis Hopper vehicle, if you can believe that Warner Brothers was making a Dennis Hopper vehicle. They realized what they were doing was really shitty and that Dennis Hopper was totally out of control. So they reshot the movie and rewrote it on the fly and just stuck Wesley Snipes in it. Sniper, which they've made 400 of those. Falling Down, technically kind of not technically an action movie, but it is. Point of No Return, which was the La Femme Nikita remake. Tombstone, which now we consider a Western classic. Excessive Force, an underrated martial arts action film starring Thomas Ian Griffith, as well as the late Tony Todd and always notable Lance Henriksen. If you haven't seen Excessive Force, go buy a copy on DVD like I had to. It is what it is, folks. That's where we're at. National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, where we're literally satirizing all of these action films. Hot Shots Part 2. So you've got not one, but two films that are like comedy satires of the action genre. It kind of tells you like, all right, when you start doing parodies, you already know the genre is kind of getting long in the tooth. So obviously, we're at the point where action heroes in the genre itself is being lampooned. Oh, wait. There's more. There was yet another Wesley Snipes movie called Rising Sun with Sean Connery. They go to Japan. It is very problematic. There's some things that are very anti-Asian, but it's still a good time. You get to watch Wesley Snipes punch people. I would be remiss not to mention the direct-to-video Street Night starring Jeff Speakman. Hey, star of The Perfect Weapon, sick plug. However, in 1993, the film industry was changing, as well as the fate of many of our action heroes. In 1993, in fact, Universal released a little film called Jurassic Park, and it changed the world. It also changed filmmaking as we know it. The implementation of CGI, aka computer-generated imagery, was very controversial. However, to people like Steven Spielberg, it was seen as a tool. Little did he know that it would take over the entire industry. It truly was the proverbial Pandora's box. Now, listen. People think about Jurassic Park and they're like, oh man, that's the movie with the CGI dinosaurs. There's only a couple of scenes. A lot of it is practical stuff. A lot of the stuff with the raptors, a lot of the stuff with the T-Rex was done practical. So don't get crazy. It's just one of those things that I think it came out in the zeitgeist like, oh man, that movie's just all CGI. It's not. And here's the thing, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to be very controversial. A real auteur like Spielberg knows how to use CGI as a tool, and I think that other auteurs will use AI and they will implement it as a tool. Now, we are kind of anti-AI here, but we do believe that it has its place, and it's still a very young technology, and as we move forward, perhaps even some of our biggest directors will figure out ways to implement it. But no longer would we begin to rely on action stars or even movie stars. The real star of the show would be special effects. Most of the mid to late 90s will begin to be built on the back of these computer-generated images. You look at a film, say like Godzilla. It didn't matter who was in Godzilla. In fact, it didn't matter who was in Independence Day. Of course, it has a fantastic cast, fantastic supporting cast, and arguably it makes Will Smith an action star to a lesser degree. But people remember the special effects, and they remember the CGI starting to come onto the scene in the late 90s. One person that was the master of hybrid action science fiction movies, or as we used to call them in the 1980s, high-concept films, was one Arnold Schwarzenegger. Jurassic Park would hand him his ass that summer as he would release The Last Action Hero. Previous episode. Sick plug, guys. Schwarzenegger's luck had kind of run out by going a little too meta. I think people weren't ready for that Deadpool-type fourth wall-breaking stuff just yet. He had been very successful with movies like The Running Man, Predator, and the Terminator films, as well as Total Recall. You see, he had found that secret recipe where just enough high-concept science fiction applied with his personality and his brand, and it was like the perfect recipe for success. He really dipped his toe into science fiction way more than the other action heroes. I mean, Van Damme did it very well with Time Cop, dipping his toe into that science fiction arena. Sly had wanted to venture into more genre fare, like science fiction films. He was even thinking about doing a horror film. At this point, too, the way the box office worked, you're trying to appeal to 4-quadrant family audience. We're trying to get grandpa, the kids. Hey, you going to bring the dog? Bring the dog. Dog will watch a movie. Dog likes popcorn. They wanted more of that sweet, sweet box office money. So the only way that you could get bigger was to go for a wider audience, which Eddie Murphy learned very wisely. He's like, hey, why am I doing R-rated comedies and it's just a guy and a girl on a date? Why don't I go and be PG-13 and do like The Nutty Professor, and then all of a sudden I've got the whole family coming to see my movies. And that really worked. It really did. And just for the record, that second step, which would push Sly away from science fiction films forever, would be 1995's Judge Dredd. That is a story for another time and perhaps even another season. Because Jesus Christ, if there ever was an episode of The Offering, we would have to cover 1995's Judge Dredd movies. Because, listen, movies like that are why I developed this show. We made this podcast for movies like Judge Dredd. But anyway, we've got some business to take care of. Maybe we'll see the old Judge down the road, because this is 1993, and today's film is Demolition Man.
In the not-too-distant future, a society of perfect order will arise. A world where aggression will no longer exist. Where sexual contact will be eliminated, and criminal behavior will be cryogenically controlled. But in the year 2032, all that will change.
This is between you and me. You really want to bring me in? You have to reach down my throat, pull out my heart.
Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes. The future isn't big enough for the both of them. Demolition Man.
One thing I realized with this recent reviewing of this film, I got the Arrow 4K, and I got to tell you, folks, it looks beautiful. They really lovingly remastered the film. It's got the score and everything else in Dolby Atmos. It sounds fantastic. Elliot Goldenthal's score, it's like a comic book movie. In fact, Demolition Man, arguably, is a satirical comic book movie. Now, Last Action Hero, same year, and Demolition Man both encapsulate the highs of the action superheroes known as Schwarzenegger and Stallone. And what's weird is that both of these films came out in the same year, and they're both satires. It's almost as if the only thing left for these action heroes was to be a bit cheeky with the audience. A wink and a proverbial nod to their own cartoonish existence. They're a product of their time, but most importantly, they reflect the early 90s to a T. It's almost what happened with the Marvel movies. If these guys don't take it seriously, why should I? If everything is just a joke every other line, who cares? You know, it's like we're talking about the fate of humanity and somebody makes like a little fart joke and it's like, all right, did that really happen? I can't believe that happened. And yeah, then like they cut the Star-Lord going like, and then we go back to the plot. It just doesn't work. Now, granted, this is fun, but it doesn't stick to the same formula for better or worse, and ultimately most actors would have to continue giving audiences the formula they have delivered time and time before, but this was 1993, and times were a-changing, so we had to even go bigger, and both of these movies, both Demolition Man and Last Action Hero, were PG-13 films. Now, Demolition Man is more akin to Schwarzenegger's The Running Man. In Demolition Man, we get a utopia instead of a dystopia, depending on how you look at it. We also see that this utopia is flawed. I think citizens had the right idea to create a safer society, but it becomes a much more sterile and flavorless society. And ultimately, we must ask ourselves, what fun is that? Even if we do have tons of Taco Bell or Burger King if you're in the United Kingdom. So I guess we should talk about this now because you can watch both versions. In the United Kingdom, they didn't have Taco Bell, so it was Burger King in the future. And what's crazy is I've never seen this version, but thanks to the good folks at Arrow, I watched the Burger King cut of Demolition Man, and it is wild. I've been also watching this little girl. She's from Ireland, and they just got their first Taco Bell in Ireland. And it's funny because it's like a very whitewashed, toned down. Like, they don't have Baja Blast. They don't have like Diablo sauce. It's too spicy for the Irish. So it's been adorable to watch the good people of Ireland get Taco Bell after all these years. Let's get down to the script, folks, because that's where it all starts. The original script was written by Peter Lenkov, who retained a story by credit. Lenkov had came to Hollywood straight out of college with no connections, and he even wrote several different scripts. He was just desperately hoping to break into Hollywood. Selling the spec script of Demolition Man to Warner Brothers would be his first big break. Lenkov had been inspired by Lethal Weapon and wanted to do something about cops. He was also influenced of stories, like of celebrities like Walt Disney being cryogenically frozen. And he was listening to Sting's song, the Police's song, Demolition Man, on repeat due to a broken cassette player in his car. This guy was down and out, let's put it that way. His initial pitch was rejected by an executive who did not understand the frozen cop idea. The finished script, where a super cop has to battle the world's deadliest criminal in the future, where there's almost no crime, generated more interest. Now, this is pretty crazy. Writer Daniel Waters, known for Heathers and Batman Returns, said his version of the screenplay was essentially a rewrite. He changed the script so extensively that when the script went into arbitration, he received first screenplay writing credit. In the early drafts, the script was a regular action movie with no attempt at comedy. Waters pitched it as an action movie version of Woody Allen's Sleeper. Waters had an idea about a small part of Universal City, a shopping and entertainment area called City Walk, and wondered what it might be like if one day all of Los Angeles was like that. And the idea grew from there. So kind of like all of Los Angeles becomes kind of this homogenized, safe corporate entity. And I think that's very interesting. Waters said that his intention was to have fun, and he wasn't trying to be political or deeply examine political correctness. He cited the conclusion of the film where society will need to find a new balance and compromise as representing his own position in the political middle ground. Now, just for the record, we're going to talk about this again. Burger King was originally written as the winner of the franchise wars, but they were not interested in being part of the film. McDonald's also declined to be involved, and then Taco Bell welcomed the opportunity. And then when Burger King found out that Taco Bell was on board, Burger King was like, listen, overseas, we got Burger Kings. We're going to do it. So we're in. If Taco Bell is in, we can't let them beat us to the punch. That's the power of Taco Bell in the 90s, kids. Live Mas. So many people have asked me if we're going to talk about it right away. But you know what? I know what you're thinking, folks. You're thinking about the 3 Seashells. Listen, it's too big. It's been a controversy over the years on so many other podcasts. So let's just get into it. I went digging as deep as I could, as deep as you could with 3 Seashells. And this is what I found out. The 3 Seashells concept originated when Waters was trying to come up with ideas for a futuristic restroom. And he called Larry Karaszewski for some suggestions. And he happened to be using the restroom when he answered the call. So he's like, well, what is a bathroom in the future? So he looks around the bathroom and he says, there's a big bag of seashells on the toilet as decorations. So Waters decides to use that in the script. A joke was cut from the script where after using the 3 seashells and washing his hands, Spartan was confronted by the same ineffective hand dryer from his own time. Waters wrote some of the script on index cards waiting online for Johnny Carson tickets. He said it was some of the fastest work he had ever written, and he had only worked on it for 2.5 weeks. So what's the answer about the 3 seashells? There is no answer. It was basically a decoration in another writer's bathroom. Okay? That's it. There's no... Listen, because people have come up with theories. There's a lot of people who are like, well, one you're going to use to scoop out the poop, and the other you're going to use it to lift your ball sack. And I'm just like, all right, guys, you've gone too far with it. And that's the real deal. The whole thing about 3 seashells, you come up with your own conclusion. If you have a good conclusion, leave it in the comments, because I'm very curious to know what you guys think about that. The film began with John Spartan being taken out of cryogenic freeze in the future of 2032. That was until Fred Dekker, who you obviously know from Night of the Creeps and Monster Squad, did uncredited rewrites on the script, adding that the Los Angeles 1996 prologue would showcase Spartan and Phoenix in their natural environment and make the differences of the future more striking. As Dekker explained, if you don't show Kansas, Oz isn't all that special. Also, for the record, Jonathan Lemkin did uncredited rewrites of the film. If everyone is keeping track of writers, there's about 11 writers on Demolition Man, and that is just insane, but this is the way things were in the 80s and 90s. Some people had gotten upset at me in the Running Man episode that I didn't give Shane Black proper credit for The Last Boy Scout. Stephen E. D'Souza read the script, and he was unavailable to commit to rewrites. Now, D'Souza, you know, obviously, as one of the writers from Die Hard, and he ends up directing Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, D'Souza recommended setting the film in the more distant future to make the culture clash more plausible. Producers rejected this suggestion because they wanted to keep the subplot of Spartan finding his daughter, but ultimately that subplot was cut from the film. Now, just so we're all clear on this, there was going to be this whole scene where Spartan goes to kind of like the grave of his daughter and his wife, and they cut it out of the movie because it just stuck out. Because this movie's kind of goofy once you get into the future, obviously with all the political correctness and the happy joy type stuff. And it just, you know, I mean, come on, you got Rob Schneider doing his Rob Schneider thing in the 90s. Peak Rob Schneider, who would return in Judge Dredd. I guess they feel like, man, you know what really worked? Rob Schneider's your man. You know, like, can you put Rob Schneider in Judge Dredd 2 years later? He's my lucky charm. Hey, listen, if Schneider isn't it, I'm out. I'm not doing no Judge Dredd without Rob Schneider. The script for Demolition Man had been in development for 6 long years before filming finally began. Now that's insane because this movie starts shooting like in 92, and I think this is going back as far as like 1986 the script first turned in. So yeah. Director Marco Brambilla had a background in shooting big budget TV commercials, and this was his first feature film. In fact, Marco was working to make Richie Rich, starring Macaulay Culkin, but they couldn't get the budget they needed. And what's funny is, in 1996, they do Richie Rich and it gets made. Instead, David Fincher recommended Brambilla to Joel Silver as the director of Demolition Man. This was kind of the time that, like, if you directed some big commercials or you directed music videos, you were almost a shoo-in. Fincher came from the world of music videos. Russell Mulcahy, who did like Highlander, he came from the world of music videos. It was kind of a natural career trajectory for you to direct commercials and music videos. And then if you did something that was cool enough, you would basically get to direct a movie for a studio. That was how they farmed out talent back then. Now, Brambilla met Stallone a few days after getting attached to the project, and he started rewriting the script with Daniel Waters. The film went into production approximately 8 months after that. Now, Joel Silver, who you know from our previous episode, whether it's Xanadu, Sick Plug, or Roadhouse, this guy, man, he's a nightmare to deal with. But he was able to get a highly experienced crew for the film. He got editor Stuart Bayard and cinematographer Alex Thompson. Brambilla brought costume designer Bob Ringwood to the project because of his work on Dune, David Lynch's Dune in 1984, and he wanted Thompson because of his work on Alien 3, so Fincher had recommended him, and he was brought on board. We should get to the casting, because the casting story for this movie is wild. When the script was still in early development, the project was going to be given to Steven Seagal playing the John Spartan hero role, and they wanted to cast Jean-Claude Van Damme as the villain. Now, once Van Damme found out that Seagal would be the hero, he gave Joel Silver a hard time, and he demanded that he should be the good guy and Seagal would be a better bad guy. So Van Damme goes and he convinces Joel Silver of this. So they go back and forth. Joel Silver goes to Steven Seagal and he's like, all right, so we want to do this, but can we make Jean-Claude the good guy? You know, you're a better actor. And I mean, could you imagine going to Steven Seagal like, you're a better actor? I mean, it's really... Come on. When you're comparing, it's like apples to apples. It really doesn't make a difference. You know, both guys can barely speak English. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know what, Joel? I don't know about that. I've never played a bad guy in a movie, and I don't think audiences are ready for the old Steven Seagal as a bad guy. And it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth. What happens is both actors are working, and they've got to cash in. So Jean-Claude Van Damme decides to do John Woo's Hard Target, and in the effect of that happening, he signs a 5-picture deal with Universal. Seagal demanded Warner Brothers let him direct his passion project on Deadly Ground, and the rest is history. Oh my. Sorry. Seagal demanded Warner Brothers that he direct his passion project on Deadly Ground, and the rest is history. If you have not listened to our episode on Steven Seagal as a terrible person, covering the wild trajectory of On Deadly Ground, please go back into the archives and listen to that. It is an all-timer. So Stallone passed on the project at first, but then he came back around to it because Stallone found out that Van Damme and Seagal were going to take it. So basically, and this is a classic Joel Silver move. He's like, I don't know. It's like, might make the movie with Van Damme. I don't know. That's what Warner wants to do. They want to, and it was one of those things where like a major studio was going to snatch up Van Damme. He was making too much money with, like these independent, lower budgeted films. It was even one of those cases where Universal distributed Lionheart, and they were like, holy shit, we can make money doing this shit. So Stallone was like, he's like, so you're telling me if I don't do this movie now, Van Damme's going to do it? They're like, pretty much, which was not the truth at all. That was such a white lie. It wasn't a white lie. That's a lie. So he's like, yeah, I'll do it because I don't want Van Damme making Demolition Man. This is interesting too. Stallone wanted Jackie Chan for the role of Simon Phoenix, and Jackie Chan turns it down because he doesn't want to play the villain. So this is a thing where we're trying to get 2 action guys, but none of the action guys want to play the bad guy. And the reason is that Stallone really admired Jackie Chan. He saw Police Story, and look, here, I'm going to say it. Stallone might have ripped off Jackie Chan. All right. This is not a hot take. This is not like, oh my God, Jerry Horror has uncovered this. If you watch Cobra, if you watch Tango and Cash, you will see sequences taken out of the Police Story movies 1 and 2. All right. Sorry, folks. I don't. But again, Stallone said this would be a great movie for Jackie Chan to make a really big impact. And of course, the thing is that all of these guys, like these machismo big action heroes, were like, nah, I can't play a bad guy. I think this would have been an interesting movie. Now, I'm going to say it. Simon Phoenix, who ultimately is played by Wesley Snipes, was the right call at the end of the day. If we get to it, dimes to dollars, it's probably the best call. Now, you're probably not going to believe this, but Wesley Snipes turned down the role several times because, say it with me now, he didn't want to play the bad guy. Nobody wants to play the fucking bad guy in this movie. So Joel Silver and director Marco Brambilla went to the set of the film Rising Sun, the very problematic anti-Asian Rising Sun, and tried to convince him in person. Brambilla explained what he thought the film could be and his passion for the script that they were writing. And the next day, he received a call and Snipes says, hey, I'm going to do it. So Brambilla said of Snipes, he works without rehearsing too much and he improvises a lot. And the two of them, the combination of energies and the way that him and Stallone interact really did the movie a lot of favors. They completely respected each other and they were really professional. They got along very well. And there was no ego or competition between the actors. And we should probably talk about this. So when they first start doing a bunch of the fight scenes with Wesley Snipes, and this is no jive and no josh, and they were shooting on 35 millimeter at the time, Snipes was too fast. And they had this same problem with Jet Li, where both of those actors moved so quickly that you couldn't see the way that we used to shoot things, action pictures, the stunt choreography, it was very big and cut, big strike, cut. And the problem was that you couldn't see the dude who was doing the striking. You couldn't see the connections being made. And it just really, really upset the cinematographer. So they had to slow Wesley Snipes down. They even set the camera back like a stop just so they could capture some of the stuff he was doing. And it would make more sense to the audience. Lori Petty was originally cast as Huxley, but was fired 2 days after filming due to what producer Joel Silver called creative differences. Or as I like to call, she wouldn't blow him. Sorry. Petty attributed it to personality differences as she and Stallone did not get along and said Sly and I were like oil and water. So what does she go on and do? She goes on and does Tank Girl. Remember Tank Girl? Remember the 90s? Remember? Ice-T was a kangaroo man? Yeah, that happened. Silver was looking for a replacement, and Lorenzo Bonaventura recommended Bullock. Now, he was impressed by her audition tape, and Silver hired her. Lorenzo di Bonaventura, you might remember from films like Transformers. He's pretty much been doing Transformers movies for the last decade. This was a weird one. Dennis Leary says he was hired for his comedic rants, which he pretty much wrote himself, and he had to undergo a long approval process by the studio before it was included in the script. Now, it's crazy because Dennis Leary is one of these guys where he was hired for all these movies, and he's just doing his stand-up act. He's doing a version of the stand-up act. He's Dennis Leary as Dennis Leary. He did make the film The Ref, with noted enemy of the state Kevin Spacey, who we've heard is currently homeless. Very sad. He's doing karaoke for money. Can we forgive him? I don't know. No, he's a scumbag. With that said, if you're looking for a good Christmas movie that you haven't seen, check out The Ref. It really works. That's Dennis Leary in the lead. It's a fantastic movie. Now, let's talk about the filming. General Motors provided the production team with 18 concept vehicles, including the Ultralight, which is the police car featured in the film. More than 20 fiberglass replicas of the Ultralight were produced to portray civilian and SAPD patrol vehicles in the film. After filming had completed, the remaining Ultralight vehicles were returned to Michigan as part of GM's concept vehicle fleet. That's insane, right? Like, that is just, nowadays they would produce one or two of them and the rest would all just be CGI. They would just all be, we wouldn't produce 20 of these things. Now, the city of Los Angeles allowed the filmmakers to use and demolish an old Department of Water and Power building in downtown Los Angeles. This enabled them to have more control over the explosion instead of having to cut straight to the building being gone, as they had been forced to do in other projects. We actually created a crater in the middle of the building, and we have the explosion and rubble more designed, so to speak. It's fun to do because those big pyrotechnics always look great, Silver noted. Now, Silver, this would not be Silver's first rodeo to the explosion arena, because we opened Demolition Man, obviously, in 1996 Los Angeles, and there's this big explosion. Now, they do this in Lethal Weapon 3, and if you're watching Demolition Man, you'll notice that all the posters, there is a Lethal Weapon 3 poster, those are all movies that Joel Silver did, and in this movie, Huxley, who's played by Sandra Bullock, is a huge fan of all these action movies that were produced by Joel Silver, which she probably has some kind of shrine to Joel Silver. I'm shocked at his ego. This is prime Silver. Oh my God, please, someone get Joel Silver and tell him I want to interview him. Tell Joel Silver I want to do his biography, please, because he's a fucking madman, and there is no journalist that has the moxie to match wits with Joel Silver. So can we make that happen? Is that the like everybody has an Everest. There's like a mountain they climb. Is my Everest to just sit down in a room with Joel Silver? What's that going to look like? Are you curious? Let's make it happen. So the biggest explosion prior to Demolition Man was on Lethal Weapon 3, when they basically decided they were actually demolishing the building, but it was down in Miami. And it's crazy because it became like this dick measuring contest with Hollywood producers, like who could do the biggest explosions. And yes, it was Joel Silver. Joel Silver is on record as having some of the biggest explosions. Take that as you will.
We'll be right back with more of The Offering with Jerry Horror.
The term cult film itself refers to the subculture that surrounds underground films and midnight movies. A cafe is usually a small and informal establishment serving various refreshments in an intimate and inviting setting. What do you get when you combine the two? You get the cult cafe, Located at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, New York, every Saturday night at 10 p.m., Cult Cafe brings you the best in cult film and beloved classics. Curated with care, especially for a devoted fan base of cinephiles. Cult Cafe is where box office bombs are resurrected, and more obscure, transgressive films, shunned by the mainstream, can find a home beautifully projected on a large silver screen. Past movies screened at the Cult Cafe include David Cronenberg's Videodrome, Frank Henenlotter's Basket Case, John Carpenter's The Thing, Sam Raimi's Evil Dead, Victor Bonacor's Thrust, and Richard Kelly's Donnie Darko. Man, the programming there is on point. For tickets and showtimes, head on over to cinemaartscenter.org to find a listing of films, or add Cult Cafe on Facebook to find a series of upcoming events. There really is nothing like seeing an old favorite in a theater full of your fellow movie fans. Hey, maybe I'll even see you there. Cinema will never die at the Cult Cafe.
Now available in paperback, hardcover, and ebook. Icons of Fright, 100 interviews with legendary horror filmmakers. You can now own the greatest collection of horror interviews ever assembled. From the Universal monsters to modern-day meta, there's something here for every horror fan to sink their fangs into. Icons of Fright, 100 interviews with legendary horror filmmakers. Available now on Amazon from Harker Press.
Listeners and fans of The Offering can get their hands on their very own The Offering with Jerry Horror merch, now only at TeePublic. Find your own fresh The Offering with Jerry Horror high-quality merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, long sleeves, stickers, and mugs. Just like the show, we've got gear that's mostly horror, always genre. The Offering with Jerry Horror TeePublic store has everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Folks, head on over to teepublic.com right now and pick up your very own Offering tee today. You're listening to The Offering with Jerry Horror. Got a question or story you want to share with me? It might be featured in a future episode. Email me at jerryhorror@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at jerryhorror. I'm also on Instagram. You can find me there at jerryhorror. Rate and review this show on Apple Podcast, and you might find your review in an upcoming episode. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to The Offering. Now back to the show. The film suffered repeated delays, and the original 72-day production schedule ran to 112 days. Stallone was out for a week due to injury. Heavy rains in Los Angeles delayed filming. A soundstage was also damaged in a fire. The production went through 5 assistant directors, and many of the crew had to leave and work on other projects because it was going so long. Insiders at Warner Brothers were critical of Silver for hiring a director without previous feature film experience. Silver rejected this view, saying Marco's done a brilliant job. We're over schedule because this is a very hard movie to make, not because Marco is inexperienced. Now, Jerry's getting ready to weigh in 3, 2, 1. Here's what Uncle Jerry says. Uncle Jerry says that a lot of times Stallone wanted to direct the films himself, but because of union rules, he couldn't. So what Stallone would do, like he did with Rambo 3, he would hire a young, inexperienced director, so the guy would be a pushover and he could get whatever he wanted. He did the same thing on Tango and Cash, which should have been a previous episode, but hey, there's always season 6. Am I right? The film mentions Arnold Schwarzenegger, who serves as the President of the United States. Do you know who also... Schwarzenegger is the president in the new Running Man movie. A lot of things where Schwarzenegger is the president. Yeah, it's kind of this weird thing. Can I talk about the Running Man for a second? Let's get to it. This is the Running Man of it all. We just did it previous episode, sick plug. You know what it is. I finally saw the Glenn Powell version of the movie. When it works, it works. When it doesn't work, it doesn't. And here's the thing. When they let Glenn Powell do the quips and be an action guy, it works. And then when they go and they try to make it something else, there's this serious lack of identity. I think there's all these different elements that really don't work in Running Man. And we can say, like, the original Running Man works because it's kind of goofy and campy in a way. And Demolition Man is kind of goofy and campy. And it has to be because the reality is so bleak. I think a lesser director, I think if it wasn't Edgar Wright, I think the movie would be more jokey and maybe work a little bit better, because it's crazy. Coleman Domingo knows what movie he's in. Michael Cera knows what movie he's in. Unfortunately, Glenn Powell is not so sure. He's not sure if he's supposed to be an over-the-top action hero or if he's just supposed to be a playing it straight kind of gritty guy. I will also say the problem with The Running Man 2025, it has a terrible third act. The third act, you can feel the welding marks. And this is what I'm going to say. This is my hot take, and I'll leave it alone. We'll get back to the Demolition Man. But it's this simple. Edgar Wright made one movie, and Paramount Pictures wanted another movie. And you can fucking feel it. That third act of Running Man, you can feel that something isn't right. And you can tell there's a sequence at the end. You could tell it was a reshoot. Total reshoot. Because I'm also going to throw out another hot take. I think Edgar Wright wanted to end this new Running Man on a downer note. And they probably showed people that version of the movie, and they were like, fuck, the great movie, but the ending sucks. So, yeah. Again, tone is important. And if one thing we learn from The Running Man, the original, the OG, which we just covered, Demolition Man, and even The Last Action Hero, is that tone is very important. And there's elements, like in this movie, if John Spartan went and had this sad scene with Sandra Bullock looking at his daughter's grave, it would have just sunk the movie. It would have just really killed the momentum. So, yeah. Now, of course, one of the film's focal points is Taco Bell. It's the sole surviving restaurant after the franchise wars, which might be coming soon. So, yeah, the European version of the film substitutes Taco Bell with Pizza Hut because Taco Bell is well known outside the United States and Canada. Both restaurant chains were owned at the time by PepsiCo. Lines were redubbed and logos were changed during post-production. See, so that's what you get, Burger King. You didn't want to take part in this movie? They replaced your ass with Pizza Hut. It's not good enough for you. You know, that's the thing, man. That's the crazy thing. It's like nobody wants to be a part of something, and then when someone says, hey, listen, Burger King's thinking about doing it, now all of a sudden Pizza Hut's jumping in. See how this works? This is like dating. You know, girl has no interest in you, and then she finds out you're dating somebody. Oh, all of a sudden she's interested. She finds out you're married. Oh, she wants to break up your happy home. That's just how it works, folks. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, this is the kind of localization of product placement was a first, where we're actually editing the movie, redubbing the lines, and changing it to a different franchise to make it work outside of the United States, which would be commonplace. How many times did we see like stuff like Iron Man 3 or like Transformers The Last Night? They put in stuff from other countries. So if you're watching the movie in a different territory, oh, you're watching Iron Man 3 in China? Well, guess what? There's huge commercial appeal for all these Chinese beverages and stuff. Or if you're watching Transformers The Last Night, all of a sudden, it's not Beats headphones, it's whatever the big selling headphones are in China. So yeah, this was the first of the localization of product placement, and it would not be the last. Definitely Pandora's box with that shit. The film was greenlit with a production of $45 million. The cost increased to $77 million after the shooting schedule was extended. The combined cost and production for the marketing was estimated at $97 million in 1992 money. And again, that subplot with Spartan's daughter was cut for pacing reasons. There was even this kind of confusion with early test audiences, and they thought that Sandra Bullock was the daughter, and people reacted negatively because there's that whole scene where they're about to have sex, like even as just VR sex. So Demolition Man was ahead of the curve with that whole like stepbrother, stepsister, like porn thing, because people, early test audiences were watching this movie and they're like, yo, why is he fucking his daughter? Even Stallone was like, yo, why am I having sex with my, like, it's not your daughter. But I think that would have been, no, it wouldn't have worked. That would have been just weird because then she can't be the romantic love interest. That would have been a good twist though, right? That would have been a good twist. Why didn't you do that, Joel Silver? Oh, that's right. Too much cocaine, too many Hollywood starlets. That's why. Or maybe not. Maybe you're doing Tai Chi and you thought of that. Joel Silver, get at me. Originally, Spartan's daughter was one of the scraps living underground with Edgar Friendly's resistance. Also, this is my big thing. A scene where Stallone fights Jesse Ventura was cut from the film. And that folks, is inexcusable because my old friend Jesse Ventura is a good pal of Schwarzenegger, and I came here, I got to fight Arnie. Did you see me? I was in The Predator, I was in The Running Man. Come on, let me fight Stallone. Let me make this happen. This is magic. Listen, anytime Jesse Ventura gets cut out of a film, the film is worse for it. Now, this is very interesting because we talk about marketing and synergy. MTV held a competition and Demolition Man to promote the film with MTV sports presenter Dan Cortez, that's a name you haven't heard in 20 years, as host and stars from the film in attendance. So Stallone's kids were huge fans of MTV sports. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with these kids. But they said, all right, well, you know what, Joel Silver's like, well, we can get him. Let's put him in the movie. So they put Dan Cortez in this movie. He's singing in the Taco Bell or Pizza Hut, depending on which country you live in. So Stallone and Snipes mercilessly tortured Cortez. Now, at one point, Dan is singing in the Taco Bell restaurant, and just to fuck with him, Stallone made him do the song 50 times. Most of those times, they weren't even filming, and it was basically him and Snipes just having a good time with Dan Cortez. You know what? I had no respect or anything for Dan Cortez. I feel bad for Dan Cortez because that was fucked up, Stallone. You and Snipes, you're out of pocket for that, but hey, that's what you did in the 90s, right? It was this this movie was supposed to be 77 days. It runs 112 days. It's gone like $40 million over budget. But guess what? We got time to fuck with Dan Cortez because you know what? Old Uncle Joel Silver's paying for it. So the film gets released and it debuts #1 at the box office. Of course, this was an action classic in the horror household or Finari household in real life. My father and I love this movie. We almost saw this movie twice. We were so impassioned by this film. We thought it hit all the right notes. Science fiction was a huge staple in my house as a kid. Demolition Man grossed $58 million at the end of its box office run in North America and a total of $159 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, that $159 million would be about $480 million, which is fucking insane. Film critic Roger Ebert was asked why this film was considered a success, but Last Action Hero was considered a disappointment, despite similar budgets and box office grosses. Ebert concluded it was due to expectations, and that this was seen as a comeback for Stallone, whose career had been floundering, whereas Schwarzenegger failed to live up to his previous record-breaking successes. But again, listen, Last Action Hero had to go up against Jurassic Park, and no matter how many Mr. Universes Schwarzenegger won, he couldn't outrun those damn raptors. In 2017, Sylvester Stallone's loan-out company filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers over the disbursement of profits from this film. The lawsuit was settled in 2019 in Stallone's favor. So for all those years, he wasn't getting residuals as he properly should have been, and you see how many years later this is that he finally resolves this. 2019, Jesus. I don't even want to know what they owed him. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 66% based on 44 reviews, with an average rating of 5.7 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, a better-than-average sci-fi shoot-'em-up with satirical undercurrent, Demolition Man is bolstered by strong performances by Sylvester Stallone, Wesley Snipes, and Sandra Bullock. Metacritic, it has a 34 out of 100, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave it an average grade of B on the A to F scale. Back to At the Movies with my two favorite critics, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. Siskel found the film amusing but did not care for the action sequences and gave it a thumbs down, whereas Ebert, champion of genre films, enjoyed both the satirical edge and the film's over-the-top action genre piece, and he thought the action sequences were good for this type of film and gave it a thumbs up. Another guy that I always talk about, Vincent Canby of the New York Times, called it a significant artifact of our time, at least of this week. People were all over the place. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone, who basically after 1995 could not be trusted because he was taking payola from the studios. Get at me, folks. He criticized the film by calling it sleek and empty as well as brutal and pointless. I think a lot of people just didn't get this movie. Either you got it or you didn't. People will say whatever they're going to say, but I think Demolition Man is a genre classic. There's a lot of different things I could go over here. Emmanuel Levy of Variety called it a noisy, soulless, self-conscious pastiche that mixes elements of sci-fi, action, adventure, and romance, and then pours on a layer of comedy replete with Hollywood in-jokes. Levy said, it works better as a comic book adventure. Better than at least Last Action Hero, but he reserves his praise for the technical merits of the film, complimenting the high-tech metallic look created by production designer David L. Snyder and his accomplished team. What's badly missing is a guiding intelligence to lift this disjointed pick from its derivative status. Fuck that. I don't agree with any of that. Like, I get it. I get the praise, but it's like they're saying that this movie had no brain, and it doesn't. It absolutely works. Also, producer Pete was saying that Austin Powers might have slightly ripped off Demolition Man, you know, where Austin Powers is brought into the future. He's cryogenically frozen. I don't know. Maybe. Are we wrong? Was there merchandise, producer Pete? You bet your sweet ass there was. Demolition Man action figures and vehicles were released in 1993. Produced by Mattel, the toys were based off their New Adventures of He-Man style of figures. In addition to 7 action figures, the set included a car, a red convertible, and the Fast Blast 442, an airplane called a Bola Jet, and a missile shooter toy gun. Sandra Bullock's character, Linnea Huxley, would not be included in the toy line because Mattel didn't believe that a female action figure could sell within the line. And I'm going to tell you, I think they were wrong. They could have done it, but that's the way boys' toys were in the early 90s. They didn't do a lot of female characters. If you even look at the He-Man toy line, they said, well, let's put more women in the He-Man line. They said, no, we'll just spin it off and make She-Ra, and it was for girls. But there were dumb little kids like me that watched it, and we liked both. It didn't matter. So is gender a spectrum? Discuss amongst yourselves. Hot Wheels released a set of 9 cars from Demolition Man. Acclaim and Virgin Interactive released Demolition Man on various home video game systems. The 16-bit versions were shooting games, distributed by Acclaim. The 3DO version is a multi-genre game that incorporates full motion video scenes, remember those, with both Stallone and Snipes reprising their roles as the characters, as they were filmed exclusively for the game. Wow. Remember those days of full motion video cutscenes? And can you imagine they were so in tune with the technology? They're like, yo, this is going to fucking, if anybody buys a 3DO, they'll be able to see these scenes. You're probably wondering what these extra scenes were. It's kind of just Stallone and Snipes cracking wise at each other. It's kind of silly. But you can watch the 3DO cutscenes on YouTube like I did, which made for a very pathetic and lonely Friday night. But you guys got to support this show so I can get some interns, maybe one that's attractive, maybe. Okay. Anyway, there was in fact a very sweet ass pinball machine released. If you've ever seen the Demolition Man pinball machine, holy shit. In April of 1994, Williams released a wide body pinball machine, which it's Demolition Man. It's based on the film. It was designed by famed pinball designer Dennis Nordman. The game features sound clips from the film as well as original speech by Stallone and Snipes. So a lot of people said to themselves, God damn, this movie feels like a comic book. And I will say, the reason you're thinking that is because it's Elliot Goldenthal who ended up doing the music for a couple of the Batman films. And man, some of the score, especially in the beginning, is absolutely bombastic. If you were watching a Marvel movie or Demolition Man, like just in the beginning alone, you would say, oh, this is definitely on the same wavelength. So DC Comics produced a 4-part limited series comic book adaptation in November of 1993, and guess what? It didn't sell well. There was also a novelization that was made. It was written by Robert Tyne using the pseudonym Richard Osborne, and that was published in November of 1993. No one gave a shit. No one. Listen, there was a time when there would be a stretch between home video coming out. You would see the movie in theaters, and then you'd have to wait for the VHS, or wait even longer for like HBO to show it. But don't you worry. If you were a pathetic Demolition Man fan, you could read Richard Osborne's novelization over and over again until it came to your local video store. Speaking of which, Warner Brothers released Demolition Man on VHS in March of 1994. Wow, that's a holdback, man, right? It's like almost a year later. And it came out on DVD in October of 1997. Then it was finally released on Blu-ray in August of 2011. I will tell you, that most of these scans are okay at best, but that Arrow video that they put on Ultra HD came out last Christmas. Oh my God, dude. Like, seriously, if it goes on sale, definitely get that Demolition Man 4K. It's beautiful, and you get to watch both versions, one with Taco Bell, one with Pizza Hut. What a world to live in. I didn't think we would make it this far. We have, and we have squandered all technology and any kind of usefulness that we could ever possibly demonstrate as human beings. So, if you've ever been curious to see Sylvester Stallone's full grundle, undercarriage, and hairy ballsack, let me tell you, this 4K is for you. I'm pretty sure I saw Sly's dick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's what you get when you put films on 4K. You get to see sack. What's the legacy of this film? Well, inspired by the film, Dennis Rodman had his hair dyed and styled the same way the character of Simon Phoenix, played by Snipes, for his San Antonio Spurs debut, which was the start of Rodman dyeing his hair in different colors. The 90s were wild, man. Dennis Rodman shows up in WCW Nitro. Like, that's insane. I still can't. It's insane. Dennis Rodman, producer Pete and I were just talking about this, Dennis Rodman would show up in Double Team, which is actually a pretty good film. Yeah, I like Double Team quite a bit because it was a Hong Kong fueled action film where they tried to make Dennis Rodman a action star. And then there was even a direct-to-video sequel, Simon Says, which we just don't explain why Van Damme is in that movie. He's like, oh yeah, they don't even explain it. They're just like, yeah, this is another movie. Snipes hated his hairdo and he shaved it off as soon as filming had wrapped. He thought it was corny. The development of erotic games for the Oculus Rift virtual reality headset had been compared to the virtual sex scene from this film. How many nerds were watching this movie back in 1993 and were like, I could have virtual sex with Linnea Huxley, as played by newly minted starlet Sandra Bullock. To celebrate the film's 25th anniversary, Taco Bell recreated the 2032 San Angeles version of their restaurant at 2018's San Diego Comic-Con. God, I wish we were there, producer Pete. That would have been amazing. Both of us love Taco Bell, and to be in Taco Bell of the distant future, or the not too distant future, would have been amazing. The film has been described as a cultural touch point, and the restrictive future society portrayed has been used as an example of government overreach and called a libertarian manifesto. Holy shit, dude. This would be a movie later quoted by people like Bill Maher and Dennis Miller, and they'd be like, oh, this is politically correct, which in our day was the version of woke. So nothing changes, folks. The terminology changes, you know? It's like what is cool today is 6'7" tomorrow. So there's that. Demolition Man has been referred to the only plausible dystopian vision of our time. Holy shit. Now, this is interesting. This is actually interesting. This woke snowflake movie. This film found renewed relevance during the COVID-19 pandemic. The film was seen as predictive when there were calls to the end of the practice of shaking hands and shortages of toilet paper. Because as you know, no one shakes hands in this movie. Everybody does that like circular hand motion thing. So yeah, in the video game Cyberpunk 2077, 3 shells are found in the bathroom of the player's apartment. In 2022, Sylvester Stallone reflected positively on the movie. I had always enjoyed this movie. It was a great action film and wonderfully directed by Marco Brambilla, and the writers were way ahead of their time. Yeah, Stallone looks back on this one fondly. What's crazy is he does Judge Dredd after this, and he never, there's never another science fiction Stallone movie made. Potential sequel, ? In 1993, US Weekly magazine reported there was a sequel planned for 1995. Guess what, folks? It didn't happen. In 2006, Stallone was asked about a sequel, and he said, I'd love to make a sequel to Demolition Man. I believe that ship has sailed, and maybe there are more challenges waiting on the horizon, which is a non-answer, Mr. Stallone. Guess what? It didn't happen. On May 4th of 2020, Stallone said, a sequel is still in development. As of November of 2024, Warner Brothers claims a reboot is in the works, but is not being actively developed. Saudi Arabia is now the odds-on favorite for the purchase of Warner Brothers. Jesus Christ, this is dystopian. I have nothing against the lovely people of Saudi Arabia and the Kingdom of Riyadh, but I will say I don't know if I want them owning the Warner's library. What I will say, can I say something positive about the Saudi Arabian people? They don't like guns in movies. The Saudi Arabians love hand-to-hand combat. And you know who else loves hand-to-hand combat? Jerry Horror. And you know what? If you want me to do a bunch of shitty martial arts movies, producer Pete and I are your guys. So if the Saudis do buy Warner Brothers, don't you worry. We've got 10 terrible martial arts movies to sell you. We're doing it. It's happening. Folks, it's that time. My favorite time of the show. It's time for some unhinged reviews. Let's check in with our friend Chris Allen. 5 out of 5 stars. This is kind of weirdly written, this title. Best, period, movie, period, ever, period. Well, top 10. You talk about non-committal. It's like best movie ever. Well, sort of. Okay, so here's the body of it. This deserves a place in the top 10 bad good movies. It's trash, but also a masterpiece. It's like Roadhouse. Previous episode. Sick plug. Yeah, it's bad, but also it's so good. Yeah, this guy's a moron, but he's not wrong. Even a clock is right twice a day. Jiffer, 5 out of 5 stars. Action-packed goodness. Disc arrived quickly, and it was shinily perfect. Played well. Forgot it was kind of an all-star cast. A lot of shit, but hey, that's a guy from insert movie name. There's some pretty good funny moments and lots of butt kicking. Good for nights you don't want to think too hard and just watch a movie. If you're looking to watch a movie and you don't want to think too hard, Demolition Man's your movie. Now this might be one of my favorite reviews ever. Anonymous Amazon purchase. 1 out of 5 stars. Like, who was he hiding from? Do you think Doris from the liquor store was going to read his review? So he anonymously, we can't say that. Could be a girl. She could have we don't want to be gender biased here. It was sucky back in 1992, and it's still sucky today. And obviously this person, their grammar or the way they speak never elevated since 1992. I tried to take a shot at them. That kind of sucked. Here's the thing, folks. When I copy these things, I don't try to change the grammar. I don't fix anything. So I'm just going to read it as it's written to fuck with you. My 25-year-old loves Tiz old campy action movies. Tiz. All of a sudden it became like an Elizabethan novel. What the fuck is that? My 25-year-old. Is this person still living at home? Is this person living in the basement? Anyway, for me, it's sheer torture to waste my time watching this kind of nonsense. Anyway, I allowed him to talk me into watching it with him last night. I made it through about 20 minutes into the movie when I finally announced I'm done. Geez, I wonder if that director was ever allowed to make more movies. I'd watch something by Uwe Boll. That's the... Not just Uwe Boll, and Tommy Wiseau before I'd watch that stupid film again. Holy shit. Listen, man, I enjoy a good Tommy Wiseau film, but you're telling me that this movie is better than I don't know. I'm sorry, folks. We've got the movie on, and I just realized Sandra Bullock, Sandy B, what a rump on this gal. Holy smokeroonies. That's right. We're up to the virtual sex scene, and man, is it unsexy. Holy shit. Wait, we've got one more unhinged review by probably the best name I've ever gotten, Craven Moorhead. Folks, Craven Moorhead. 1 out of 5 stars. Title of the review, wow. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. The plot is ridiculous. I think the scene that sums up this movie is when Stallone goes in the sewer to find a bunch of people living there, and lo and behold, happens upon a Spanish woman grilling hot dogs and hamburgers. He promptly orders a burger and a beer, and she asks what he's paying with in Spanish, of course, and they cut to a horribly ugly watch Bullock is wearing, and he says he'll pay with that. So he gets the burger and beer, and guess what? Oh, whoa, ho, it's actually made of rats. That was a knee slapper. And Stallone adds to the witty quip, oh, not bad. which made me want to drown myself. And what's even better is that 2 minutes later, he happens upon a 1970s muscle car in perfect condition. And I mean, that would make sense. And a muscle car from 1970 would be in a sewer in 2032 and in perfect condition among a group of sewer dwellers. And on that, I think I'm going to fill up my bathtub with some good old water to drown myself after watching this film. Listen here, Mr. Craven Moorhead. You know what? Since I hope that you wrote this review on Target.com, Craven Moorhead, how'd they let you get away with that on such a family site? But that remains nonetheless. You were going to kill yourself because you thought this movie was so bad? Listen, you're full of shit and you don't know what a fucking bad movie is. You and the last cunt who wrote that last review, you don't know nothing about movies. You don't know nothing about Tommy Wiseau. This is what old Uncle Jerry says. Just when you think you found the bottom of the barrel has a basement. You don't know what kind of shit that I'm watching. I'm watching movies. They would fucking turn your hair white if you knew how bad they were. Yeah, you would drown yourself in a bathtub if you knew the shit that I was watching. No shade. What does it all boil down to, folks? I think at the end of the day, what Demolition Man gets right is there's a bunch of technology in this film that came to fruition. We are actively still selling virtual reality units at home. People can buy them, stuff like MetaQuest. It also gets right some of the internet, because Simon Phoenix goes onto some kind of a database and he downloads all the information about guns, society, and even some sweet fighting moves from the late Bruce Lee. Also, we see that we have hybrid vehicles that don't run on gas. That's kind of a new thing. And they're self-driving, which, guess what, folks? We have self-driving cars. There's even a version where Stallone finds a half-naked woman that he wants to FaceTime with. It's a wrong number. It's the right number, if you ask me. But there's a lot of things that Demolition Man gets right about the future. Yeah, sure, this movie was made in 1993 and it's supposed to be in the distant future of 2032. But guess what? The movie gets right more than it gets wrong. People love Taco Bell. In fact, guess what, folks? Taco Bell is now the #1 fast food chain in the United States. And it just keeps growing worldwide. So how far off was Demolition Man? Not that much, really, folks. The future as we see it right now, our present day, is more oddly connected to Demolition Man than ever before. All the people who run society, guess what? They're essentially Democrats. And the people living in the sewers, they're essentially Republicans. The whole point of the movie, once you get to the end of it, Stallone tells the guys in the sewer, he says, hey, listen, you guys got to clean up a bit. And he tells the people who are living in the overworld, you guys have to get a little bit dirty, which means that we have to meet in the middle. And considering we live in a country right now that is torn apart by all kinds of philosophies and what they hold as sacred text or rules, we're all killing each other. We're all fighting each other every day online about dumb shit. Demolition Man teaches us a lot more than we actually realize. We do need to meet in the middle. Some of us do need to get a little dirty. Some of us need to clean up a bit. And you know what? The only way that we're going to get things done in this country is, guess what? By working together. The other day, Mr. Zoran Mandani came to the White House and, Trump had dragged him, called him a communist, all this other bullshit. He called, Trump a fascist. It is what it is. But guess what? They broke bread. They met in the Oval Office. And I think Donnie Trump had a little bit of a crush on Zoran. I think he did. I think he said, you know what, this handsome guy, he came in from New York. Listen, say what you will about Donald Trump, but the motherfucker still surprises me. Not in good ways, usually, but in this way it was nice. And hopefully we can take a lesson from these two guys meeting and we can say, you know what, let's meet in the middle. Let's work together. And I think that that's a great lesson to take from Demolition Man. We're all we got, whether it's in the future, whether it's in the present. The only way we're going to get to this super utopia where the only restaurant is Taco Bell. And first off, I'm not against that. Not against that. You could still cook at home, but if you want to go out, it's Taco Bell only. And I'm fine with that because I think that the gordita is one of the greatest inventions of our time. There's a lot of stuff. There's virtual meetings in this movie. There's all kinds of things that you see. And basically what? This is like work from home. It's like a Zoom meeting with all these different machines. It's incredible. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that came to fruition, and I have to say that's an incredible merit of Demolition Man. And for what was supposed to be, kind of like a goofy action blockbuster for 1993, this movie holds up. It still slaps. And goddamn, Sandy B's got an ass that won't quit. Oh, and Otho's in this movie. Remember Otho from Beetlejuice? Yeah, he's in the movie. And he's wearing kind of a geisha girl outfit. I don't know what that's all about. But again, as I've said, gender is a spectrum. So if you've made it this far into the episode, let's just say we have a gentleman's agreement that I have put forth with the listeners. If you have tested your time and patience with old Uncle Jerry through this entire fabrication of nonsense, guess what? You should write in the comments 3 seashells, because you will be greatly rewarded by being part of a club that listens to the entire episode. I want to hear from the diehards, the real fans, the real hardcore people who are really into the offering. Just put 3 seashell emojis in the comments. That's right, you heard me. 3 seashell emojis in the comments. I'll know that you made it this far into the episode. So do yourself a favor. Treat yourself. Go out, get that Arrow 4K, get the Arrow Blu-ray. See this film, restored to all its shocking glory. I will tell you, though, there's some stuff that you don't want to see. Not just Stallone's grundle, but there's definitely some effects that don't look right restored in 4K. You might even see some strings, but that's just old Jerry. Well, dig this, folks. Next week's episode is the final offering of the season. It is our season finale. It's going to be a hell of a barn burner, as it always is. It's about to get even more unhinged and more ridiculous because Uncle Jerry is tackling a film that has divided an entire fan base. A film so divisive that it almost killed one Sam Raimi. Ooh, I've said too much. But you're going to have to stay tuned next week to hear the season finale and see how old Sam Raimi gets out of this one. And that's it, folks. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If I haven't seen you, happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. All of them, baby. We celebrate all the holidays. You want to know why? Because all men have been created equal. And all women have been created equal. However, no one is as equal as Sly Stallone because he gets top billing and that's just the way it goes. I'm Jerry Horror. This has been The Offering, mostly horror, always genre. You've been listening to The Offering with Jerry Horror, produced by Pete Bune. If you have a question or story you want to share with me, we'd love to hear from you. You can email me at theofferingwithjerryhorror@gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter at theofferingwjh. Or hit me up on the Instagram at Jerry Horror. You get the picture? Subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Join us next time for another offering.
Chasing worries like Omaya, genre twists that shake your core. Every episode, we craving more. Mostly horror, always genre.
This has been a Sick Boy Wolfgang production. Thank you for listening.